Okay, welcome back to Psychology with Mr. Snyder at Carroll High School. Today we're going to be talking about surveys, samples, and populations, and this corresponds to Chapter 2, Section 2 of your book. Basically, if you like statistics, you're going to enjoy this chapter in this section, especially if you don't, well, just keep watching anyway. Maybe I can pique your interest somehow. Learning targets for today. Analyzing the survey method is number one. We're going to break it down, talk about what it is, how it can be done, advantages and disadvantages. We're going to describe how populations and samples can affect research. And we're going to also talk about why researchers don't generalize the results of their surveys. So, the survey method. Surveys are used to gather information about people by asking them directly. So researchers will ask a series of questions about the topic they are studying. These surveys usually are all the same. They can vary, but usually the questions in a survey are all the same for everyone answering the survey. This way, researchers can ask lots of questions and survey literally hundreds of people. These surveys can be conducted in person in the form of interviews or on the telephone. Orally can be conducted via a written questionnaire or over the internet. And that's the big advantage of a survey, is that aside from their ability to get private information from people, researchers can get a tremendous amount of information from a very large group of people rather easily. And of course, there are disadvantages that come with it. A disadvantage is that researchers have to be very careful about the group of people they survey. If they want to find out what high school students think about politics, for example, they can't really ask every single high school student in the entire United States, and we'll get to how they fix that problem here in a second. Another is that people may not be honest about their attitudes or behavior. They may adhere to social norms. There was a survey done about how often people brush their teeth, but if the results of that survey were actually true, the results, toothpaste sales would have been threefold in the United States. So they were obviously lying about how many times they brush their teeth per day. People may limit their responses for privacy reasons. Even if it's anonymous, they may not want to reveal that much personal information about their life. Or they may just say what they think the interviewers want to hear because of social pressures. Somebody else is asking you a question. Why disagree with them? All right, populations and samples. So to accurately predict an outcome or to get this survey distributed, psychologists study a group that represents the target population. The target population is the whole group they want to study or describe. So if I was asking what high school students think about politics, my target population are high school students in the United States. Those are only relevant to the survey. But there are millions of students in the United States. We can't possibly interview them all. That would be impossible. So a sample is only a part of the target population, and the researchers are trying to select a representative sample, and you can do that randomly. So psychologists select samples scientifically and randomly to support or to ensure that the samples accurately represent the populations they are supposed to represent. A sample should be as similar to the target population or as possible, so it should be representative. If if 28% of high school students are seniors, then 28% of the sample should be seniors. If 9% are black, then 9% of the sample should be black. And one way that you can do this, in theory, is that scientists obtain an accurate sample by using a random sample, or individuals are selected randomly from the target population. Another type of sample is called a stratified sample. And essentially, a large enough random sample is likely to be stratified, even if they take no steps to ensure that it is, because it's so large. But a large sample size does not necessarily guarantee that the sample represents a target population. Lastly, let's go over generalizing results. Sometimes, if you don't use a sample that represents an entire population, you cannot generalize your findings to um, other studies, other groups of people. So if I was wondering how high school students felt about politics, and I only interviewed students from Carroll High School, I can't say that high school students from the United States feel this way about politics. It's not true. Only students from Carroll High School feel that way about politics. That's all I can say. I cannot learn about the attitudes of Americans in general if I limit my observations to only men or only women or only to people who live in one part of the country or to people from one socioeconomic background. You cannot generalize your results. It's bad science. So that's why selecting a sample is a very difficult thing to do. Also, there are different biases. There are courtesy bias, where that's when the person only says what the interviewer wants to hear out of common courtesy. There's also volunteer bias in these samples. Psychologists are aware that bias may occur on the part of the respondents. So think about this. The polls, when you go to a website like ESPN or CNN or Fox News or whatever, and there's a poll on the front page and you click an answer, it always says this is not a scientific poll. Why not? Because only the people who care enough to responded. That's only the people who cared enough. So your results are going to be biased. And bias is a predisposition to a certain point of view, despite what the facts may suggest. And there's volunteer bias. People who volunteer in studies may have a general different outlook from people who do not volunteer. They may be more willing to disclose their personal information. They may have more spare time to participate in a study, and they probably do not represent the target population. So we must be careful to generalize our results because, one, the target population may not be accurately represented in the sample, and we also must be careful of volunteer bias. All right, and that is our lesson for today on surveys, samples, and populations. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in class later. Bye-bye.